Hey, this is Sam Sauter from West Channel Media. My partners and I, over the last trailing 12 months, have generated over 7 figures online in our digital marketing agency. I've been doing this close to a decade now, worked in 25 different industries. We manage about $200,000 to $300,000 per month in paid advertising spend profitably across Meta and LinkedIn, primarily are our two main channels. We also do a bit of PPC, but those are our three main channels. In today's video, what I want to talk to you guys about is a new client that we just brought on. This is a career consulting, career coaching program. We generated them a 5x return on advertising spend, almost 5, about a 4-point-x return on advertising spend within the first 30 days of working with us on LinkedIn ads. Now, this was a client that was already doing incredibly well. They're well past 8 figures in revenue, and they had primarily just been leveraging Meta, spending about $5,000 to $10,000 per day on that platform, depending on the day. I approached the founder and told him that I thought that LinkedIn would be higher returning and also a source of diversification for their traffic, that they wouldn't be reliant on that same channel. So we're very excited, not just on the results that they got in the first 30 days, but we're excited based on the fact that this is going to put them in a position to sell their company because they're actually now diversified from a risk perspective. A private equity company, a potential acquirer can see this as a much more diversified, much more safe, much more stable business that isn't reliant necessarily on one single channel. First thing I want to do is just quickly, guys, show you the data. So as you can see here, follow me on my screen share here, the total amount of advertising spend is $11,000, about $11,065. Cost per lead was about $49. 225 leads that were generated. 49 of those leads were labeled as not qualified. So 78% of the leads were qualified. We had 8 no-shows. We had 36 booked calls. Cost per book call was around $307. 28 calls that were taken, $400 per call that was taken, with a 78% show up rate. We had a 12% lead to call rate, which is the worst metric in this entire funnel. We're going to talk about how we're going to fix that. We had 16 offers that were made. The cost per offer made was $700. We had an offer rate of 57%. We won 4 deals, so our close rate was 25%. Our cost to acquire a customer was $2,700. The average package value was $10,300 approximately, and we added about $41,000 in revenue. This is just in the first 30 days of working together. Now, what's so exciting about this is that it's very, very difficult, no matter what channel that you're operating on, to just get an initial proof of concept. It's very, very easy once you have something that's working to double down on that. Businesses can oftentimes take 6, 12, 18 months to have a profitable acquisition system, a business model that makes sense where they can put $1 in and get $3 out within the first 30 days. We're very confident in our ability to scale this and keep optimizing this further, but getting that first initial proof of concept is a phenomenal asset to that business. Now that you have an idea on the high level data, let's just quickly show you how we tracked everything. So for this particular client, we just started by tracking everything simply here on this Google Sheet, but now the business owners actually coded that into a dashboard and a CRM with our team's help internally. So I want to just quickly show you the Google Sheet that we use to track everything. You can see here, flash on my screen share here. We can see the date that the lead was created. Now, specifically to keep context here, we were using LinkedIn lead forms as our primary source of traffic. You can see the first name, the last name, the LinkedIn profile or URL, the phone number, the company name, the email address. One of the amazing things that I love about running LinkedIn ads is that you have the opportunity, either through a data enrichment tool or through using a LinkedIn lead form, you have the opportunity to collect a lead's LinkedIn profile URL. Why is this so important? Well, from one LinkedIn profile URL, you have access to so much information. You have the company name, you have the company website, phone number, everybody that they work with, company size, their entire career history. You have an idea if they're financially qualified or not from your services, all from that one LinkedIn profile URL. Now, conversely, if you were to advertise on a more social channel like Google or Meta, you would have to put that prospect to gather the same amount of information through pages and pages and pages of questionnaires on your application form. If you're an experienced marketer, you know that every single question that you ask is great for you as the marketer, but creates more friction, more complexity for the end user. It drives up your lead cost because people drop off at every stage of that application process. So one of the benefits of running LinkedIn lead form ads like we did with the client here is that with no exertion of effort, the prospect is able to autofill that profile URL on their end. It's very frictionless to them, but we gather so much more information than we really need to be able to qualify them. And the added benefit of that is your sales team is going to be exponentially more efficient because they aren't necessarily needing to call leads to figure out if they're qualified. You can rather just have a VA do some qualification and you know for certain if they're qualified before you ever make a phone call. And that's a big deal because if the sales team doesn't have to sort through 10 times or 20 times as many leads, then all of a sudden you're going to have much happier sales reps that churn less frequently, that do a higher volume of sales per each month. They're going to earn higher commissions. They're going to stay longer. That's going to improve your recruiting capabilities when you tell your sales team that, you have a sales manager making $10,000 or $20,000 or $30,000 a month, as opposed to if they're working Meta leads, they might have to sort through and disqualify 90% of the Meta leads. Therefore, they might only be able to do $50,000 to $100,000 per month. And then your recruiting capabilities are diminished because you have to recruit and market to other potential sales reps that your top rep is only making between $5,000 and $10,000 per month on that $50,000 to $100,000 in cash collected. What we're finding with most of our clients is that between 10 and 30% of leads are actually resulting in a meaningful phone call. On LinkedIn, conversely, we're seeing on average between 20 and 50% of leads are actually resulting in a meaningful phone call. So it's significantly higher. The lead cost is typically at a small premium to what we're paying on Facebook, usually about 20 to 30% more expensive, but the cost per call ends up being synonymous because the quality is so much higher on LinkedIn. We're finding that the platform as a whole has a disproportionately higher conversion conversion rate. HubSpot recently just published a study that LinkedIn was the highest converting, highest returning platform for B2B marketers. We're seeing that typically with our clients. Most of the clients that we work with have anywhere between a 2 to a 4, sometimes as high as a 6 or a 7x return on advertising spend on Meta. What we're seeing on LinkedIn is the average client is operating around a 4 to 6x return on advertising spend just within the first 30 days. That doesn't take into account future purchases of that existing customer. So you can see here, if we go back to my Google Sheet here, we just had a VA every single day to check the LinkedIn profile URLs of the specific person that we were targeting. We marked their specific status. There's different statuses that we had in our CRM. So we had no shows, qualified, unqualified, offers being made, strategy sessions being completed, and then this all custom calculated into a dynamically updated report here that we saw on page 2. The biggest constraint right now in our current system is that we're only getting about 12% lead to call rate, okay? The main reason for that, and we're talking with the business owner a lot about this transparently, is that the leads are only being called 1 to 3 times on average. If we bump that up to 5 to 7, which we're seeing with most of our clients is the optimal sweet spot, we should be able to get that lead to call rate up to 25 to 30%, which then has a high likelihood of turning what is currently a 4x return on advertising spend to an upwards of a 6 or 7x return on advertising spend just within the first 30 days. Now that you guys have an idea on the tracking, the dashboard, and the numbers, I'm going to quickly show you here the creatives and the ads that we're using inside the ads manager. So here's an example of the lead form that we're currently using for our clients. You can see here, just very simple, frictionless is what we recommend personally as starting out. Start with the most frictionless funnel. This is not like Meta lead forms to where typically the leads are going to be very, very poor quality if you don't have any friction or any application. The quality of prospect that is on LinkedIn, that is consistently updating and cognizant of their personal and professional reputation on LinkedIn, typically is a very, very high quality of person. You don't need to add much more friction. So here's an example of the creative that we're typically using right now. So right now, for most of our clients, we find with about 70% of our clients that they get better results with the image ad placement on LinkedIn compared to Meta, where we typically get better results with video ads. What we're finding is that our required bid in order to get our ads served to these specific audiences has to be significantly higher if we're operating with a video ad versus an image ad. So typically what we're doing with a new client is we try and take the messaging that is working in their video creatives on Meta and code those into an image that we can then use on the LinkedIn advertising platform. One thing you have to keep in mind is that when using image ads, you'll find that the lead might be a bit colder than you're accustomed to because they haven't consumed as much information as you can convey in the video ad placement on some of those other channels. So you can see here that we had multiple different versions of essentially the same message that we knew was working on another platform in a video format. Now on LinkedIn, our targeting strategy is very different from something on Meta. On Meta, we're typically targeting broad, meaning we do not have any restrictions, any filters on our targeting. We're allowing the AI, which has about 50,000 data points per user on Meta, that's very, very effective at being able to predict user behavior. We just allow Meta and Facebook to do the targeting for us. We get better results. On LinkedIn, it's the complete opposite. They don't have the same volume of money being pumped through the advertising platform each year. The platform as a whole on LinkedIn ads is just a lot less mature than Meta. It actually feels very similar advertising on LinkedIn in 2025 as advertising on the platform in Meta did in 2016. And our strategy that I used on Meta in 2016 is essentially just synonymous to what we're using on LinkedIn in 2025, meaning we're having a bunch of different ad sets, a bunch of different targeting options, and paying close attention to seeing which audiences are yielding the highest result. Versus on Meta, where I'm targeting broad, I'm typically only focused on the creative. Now, this particular client targeted a wide array of potential job titles, but what I always want to do when I'm starting with a new client is I want to ask them who is their ICP, and if they have multiple, I want to focus on the lowest hanging fruit. Because when you're starting a new acquisition channel from scratch, there's a lot of different variables, a lot of things that are fighting against you because you simply don't have a lot of data on the platform. So we wanted to start it with the lowest hanging fruit. Now, this particular company was very effective at placing people into a particular job title with a very attractive compensation structure. Now, we could have positioned this as a biz opportunity and essentially targeted the world that was very attracted to $150,000 to $200,000 a year salary opportunity. But instead, what we did is we targeted the people that were already about 1 or 2 promotions away from entering into that job role. The reason being is there's a lot less beliefs that need to be broken for somebody that's already very close to being on that career path versus trying to convince somebody who is maybe in the field or the industry as a whole to make a 180-degree pivot into now pursuing this corporate career. It requires a lot more selling, a lot more marketing, a lot more education, a lot more beliefs being broken, the less similar their current role was to what the desired role that this company was very effective at placing people into. Now, obviously, by narrowing down to one specific job title, we were limited in terms of our audience size. Now, the people who had currently listed their job title as that specific role was very limited. And what we did to expand that role is we actually targeted all the people that had listed that particular job title in their past work experience. This is actually a 10x bigger oftentimes audience size than people that are currently in that role, and it will allow you to tap into a lot more scale if it makes sense within the current context of your offer. This is where context comes into play. It may not make sense based on your current offer to target people that are not currently in that job role, but nonetheless, this was very effective for our campaigns and expanding our overall audience size and increasing the scalability of this campaign. After we had identified those specific job titles, All we did is we created 20 different variations of that particular audience, and the main filters being company size, industry, and we also added on different exclusions. It's very important when leveraging LinkedIn advertising to leverage the exclusion sections. This is where you specify exactly what you don't want to appear in the targeting. What you'll notice is that when you define your particular audience on LinkedIn and then you add exclusions that are nowhere near relevant to what you would want to be grouped in, you'll notice that your audience size starts to drop precipitously. LinkedIn has a tendency to group in people that really have nothing to do with what your dream ideal client is for your particular offer. So it's very, very clear that you specify exactly what you want, and then you also specify exactly what you don't want in the LinkedIn advertising targeting to make sure your precious advertising dollars aren't being allocated or wasted towards audiences that have no real affinity or aren't really your ideal client profile. After we launched our advertising campaigns, we leverage a bidding strategy called cost cap bidding strategy. This is very different to what we're using on Meta, where Meta, we're just typically allowing the algorithm to spend the money however it thinks it's best, versus on LinkedIn, we have a different issue, which is the algorithm isn't very sophisticated. So by giving LinkedIn this full control over your budget, it has this tendency to overspend. Your lead cost becomes exorbitantly expensive. By leveraging a cost cap bidding strategy, we basically say that we will spend money so long as a certain result or a certain cost per lead or a certain click does not exceed X. This gives our clients much better results, much lower lead costs, and keeps the cost in check overall for this particular platform. After we launched the campaigns and we started getting spend, the first thing that I'm looking for is typically the cost per lead. That's my early and leading indicator, but not all leads are created equally. So what we then started to do is we installed ROAS onto this client's account, and we also double tracked everything natively through our Google Sheet. And what we tried to start identifying was, although the lead costs were synonymous and looked healthy for the business, we wanted to see if there was a discrepancy in the conversion rate of those specific leads for a particular audience or subset of the targeting. After a period of about 7 to 14 days, we identified our clear winner and our clear specific audience that we were targeting that was yielding the highest return on advertising spend for the client. We cut out all the fat that wasn't yielding the results, and we doubled down on those profitable segments of the campaign. We're currently in the process of scaling these campaigns from about $500 a day to about $1,000 per day. At that point, I think we're going to have to expand to other audiences. But the good news is, at a $1,000 per day advertising budget and a 5x return on advertising spend, which is my projections moving forward, we're going to add about $150,000 in revenue to the business and about $70,000 to $80,000 in net profit to the business, and tracking for another $1 million in profit for that business looking forward into the next 12 months. So with that being said, that's pretty much everything that I wanted to share with you guys today. If I had to summarize everything, the first thing that we did is we created a very simple dashboard that tracked every stage of our sales process. We wanted to compare those key KPIs to the other platform, Meta, that they specifically had that was already working. The second thing that we wanted to keep in mind was our positioning of that, specifically what avatar are we going to be marketing on the LinkedIn platform. We tried to pick the audience to where we had the lowest hanging fruit, to where we needed to do the least selling, the least amount of education, and the least amount of belief breaking in order to convert them into a potential prospect. So we tried to pick the job title accordingly to find that. We chose to convert their winning video, image, messaging, and creatives into an image so that we didn't have to place the same premium on our bid to be able to service those ads to our prospective client. And then we started tracking the data, looking at the conversion rates for each individual ad set to see if we were on the right track. And not that we were just optimizing for the cheapest possible leads, but actually the leads that were converting at the highest percentage with the sales team. So again, that is pretty much everything that I have to share with you guys for today. If you found this valuable, you can subscribe to the channel. And if your business is doing between $50,000 and $100,000 per month in revenue, we'd love it if you could schedule a call to speak with our agency. We would love to talk to you about either scaling an existing channel that's already working for you, or conversely adding on a second channel like LinkedIn in addition to a channel that's already working for you, just to add some diversification and allow you to sleep better at night. And even if you're not doing between $50,000 and $100,000 per month in revenue and you're not qualified for our done-for-you agency services, you may be a fit for our mentorship program. This is a done-with-you consulting option where you can get to learn from me and my team here at West Channel Media about how we can either help you grow your digital marketing agency or grow your business through some of the principles that we've refined over the last decade. So without further ado, I hope that was valuable. I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and thanks so much for your time.